Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Jay and welcome to The Ship Life. So we have a lot of breaking cruise news to dive into for this video. I also have another video coming out later on today in regards to the crew. So just a heads up, you guys should keep an eye out for that one because trust me when I tell you, it's going to be a very interesting topic to talk about. It's something a lot of you have been asking about. Now for this video, we're not going to waste any time. We do have to talk about the CDC as they have essentially put out an update that is not only big for cruising, but potentially big for the entire world. They also did somewhat of a walk back in regards to their statements that they put out about cruising a couple weeks ago. It's actually pretty positive news, so we'll talk about that. We also going to talk about the first cruise port that is now requiring a booster in order for you to disembark a cruise ship over in that area. And then finally, and unfortunately, we have more Ncl cancellations. Okay, so we're actually going to pull the old Uno reverse card and dive into the Ncl news first. So about a week ago, Ncl made a round of cancellations that unfortunately affected about 8 ships. Now, in that original set of cancellations, we had the Getaway from Ncl and the Pearl that were affected. They have now made an additional extension to the cancellations. However, also joining the chopping block, we also have the Ncl Joy, the Dawn, and the cruise ship that I used to work on, the Ncl Escape, that have now been affected in another round of cancellations, canceling all the way until late January. Now, I gotta be honest with you, I'm really surprised with this extra set of cancellations because we haven't heard anything from Carnival. They haven't put out any rounds of cancellations. Well, they had one cruise in particular, I believe it was a Carnival Legend, that shortened the cruise from like 14 days to 10. Don't quote me on the days, but either way, I'm just surprised we haven't seen a round of cancellations from them. But before any of that happened, we got another round of cancellations from Ncl. Now, there is the big question. Why is this happening? I have told you guys that even though this hasn't been made public yet, Ncl is essentially doing what Royal Caribbean is doing and basically making quarantine ships. They have people going from bigger ships like the Ncl Bliss, for example, over to another smaller ship with their other cruise lines, their subsidiaries, Oceania and Regent. So the Regent 7 Seas Navigator and the Oceania Regatta, I keep forgetting how to pronounce the name, those are going to be quarantine ships for Ncl. So maybe they are reorganizing and reevaluating things, and hopefully everything will calm down by that point in time, meaning late January, so they can operate safely and get somewhat back to normal, and hopefully this pandemic will maybe be over. Well, we can dream, right? Next up, the port over in San Francisco, California has become the first official port to require you as a cruise ship passenger to be boosted in order to disembark over in that area. Now, this went into effect on January 7th, so that was this past Friday. Now, they do give you two options. You can either be boosted or you can have or produce a negative COVID test. Now, I do gotta say this is something that I know a lot of people somewhat expected to happen, especially here in 2022, due to, of course, the Omicron surge. That's why all this is happening. And of course, when you look at all this, you gotta wonder if this is gonna happen anywhere else. Now, this is a topic that has been the topic of discussion for a while when the boosters started kind of surfacing, especially with the Omicron coming out around October and November. And a lot of people were wondering if it was gonna happen in other cruise ports. I would say typically when something happens, and I guess this is kind of like an old saying, even though nobody really says it, but it's kind of like something that is something we all know. Typically, when something happens in like California or New York City, as far as new regulations, new laws, it's probably going to start to kind of sprinkle to other places. However, I could be proven wrong, so I guess we'll see in the not so distant future. But if you guys think this will affect someplace else, like maybe a Texas or any place of that nature, or another cruise port, let me know which ones you believe in might be affected in the comment section below. Now, finally, of course, while you guys are hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel along with the notification bell in the event that you haven't already, that way you can stay updated on everything going on within the cruise ship industry, we do have to talk about the CDC. As the director of the CDC, Dr. Rochelle Walensky, which is of course the boss lady, the head honcho, the suit, she has actually said something somewhat good about the cruise ship industry. Now, this does come after the CDC a couple weeks ago came out and said that people shouldn't go on cruise ships whether they are vaccinated or not. Now, at the beginning of the week, there was a Senate court hearing, which was really interesting. If you guys haven't heard any of it, it's Dr. Fauci involved and Dr. Rochelle Walensky, a bunch of big wigs that are talking about not just the cruising industry, but pretty much the entire United States. And like I said, it's juicy stuff. Go check it out. But anyway, Dr. Rochelle Walensky essentially said the cruise lines have stepped up, meaning they're pretty much doing a good job. She's saying as far as them working with the CDC, they've worked collectively and collaboratively to make sure that cruising is as safe as it can be. However, she did put a little caveat in there, a little spin on things, and said that the COVID cases has increased, and this is a fact, about 30-fold on board cruise ships. But yes, that's happened, but you also got to take into consideration this is also happening literally in every other part in the world. So the cruise lines are not some type of outlier or some type of problem causers or anything of that nature. Problem causers. What was that? But anyway, guys, you have all this going on with the CDC, but like I said, this is some very good words of encouragement for cruising. Now, this is kind of weird because this comes just 2 days, right? What's today? No, not 2 days. We have the 5th, on the 15th anyway. The 15th, the CDC, or the CSO rather, the conditional sailing order is set to expire. Now, this does mean that it won't technically be gone, but it will be just kind of like a voluntary program. So the cruise lines will be on their own to fend for themselves and decide what they think is best for their passengers on board. So they can either follow this or they don't have to. Now, personally, I do believe they will continue to follow the CDC's recommendations because, yes, there is a public appeal, and should anything go wrong, and if they need the CDC or anything of that nature, and, you know, let's say media hysteria comes back if there's a couple cases on board, then they can say that they've still been following the CDC guidance, which honestly does make sense if you really think about it. Now, I do got to be completely honest with you. When I hear that the CDC, the director of the CDC at that, is making somewhat good comments and kind of walking back what they said a couple weeks ago, it reminds me of going to school. You guys ever had like an exam or like the end of the year and you were kind of flunking a class, or maybe you wanted a better grade and the teacher just kind of gives it to you out of a show of good faith toward the end of the year because she's just kind of being nice? That's what I feel like when it comes to Dr. Rochelle Walensky. She's like, well, I don't really like what you guys are doing, but I'm going to go ahead and take that C and give you a B because I know you probably want it and you probably deserve it. So here you go. Maybe I'm the crazy person, but that's what it looks like to me. Now, before we wrap this video up, I do want to play a quick clip by Dr. Rochelle Walensky when she talks about COVID cases and everything that's going on, because I do believe this could potentially change everything as far as dealing with the pandemic. Just take a listen.
A study of 1.2 million people who were vaccinated between December and October and demonstrated that severe disease occurred in about 0.015% of the people who were received their primary series, and death in 0.003% of those people. The overwhelming number of deaths, over 75%, occurred in people who had at least 4 comorbidities.
So we all do know that the Omicron variant is less lethal than the Delta variant and the OG corona that we dealt with back in 2020. Now, as you saw with Dr. Rochelle Walensky, she was saying that 75% of the people that are being hospitalized and potentially dying are due to people that had more than 4 comorbidities, meaning people that had more than potentially 4 sicknesses or illnesses or maybe underlying conditions that could have potentially caused them to succumb to their injuries, whether it resulted in them passing away or them being hospitalized. Now, in a weird way, I would say this is somewhat great news because this is something that's been kind of put out there, a lot of fear, and a lot of people are scared and they think that things are going to happen to them. However, this could potentially be a big game changer in a turnaround for the entire pandemic. Now, there have been talks that potentially the Omicron variant could maybe possibly be the way out of this pandemic because it's less lethal. People could just get maybe some mild symptoms at the most, the cold, flu-like symptoms, and be on their merry way. However, I do want to leave all of it to you. Let me know what you think about all this in the comment section below. Not just this last topic. I mean, obviously, this is very important because maybe we could be seeing the end of the pandemic, not just, again, with cruising, but the entire world. But let me know what you thought about the topics that we talked about in today's video. Also, on your way out, of course, guys, hit that like button, share the video, subscribe, because like I said, I have a video coming out later, and if you don't get the notification, well, it is what it is. I hope all of you guys are doing well. Thank you for watching today's video, and I'll see you later today. Take it easy.